Well, we've got two gentlemen joining us this morning to give their perspective on what's going on and the way forward. Alhaji Muhammad Yakubu is a member, National Working Committee of the ACF. He's also a political analyst, as you can see, joining us from our studios in Abuja. We also do have Dr. Olufemi Adegoke, who is the Chairman, Steering Committee of Yoruba Summit Group and Chairman, Voice of Reason. Good morning, sir. And gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. Well, having listened to and read perhaps the comments attributed to the Vice President and reactions, what context people are responding to it from, the questions about the Constitution appears unending, year on year, one agitation or the other, more so when we approach days such as this one, the eve or the day of our anniversary, which is again playing itself out again this time. So let me start with you, Alhaji Yakubu. What do you think? How can we answer this big question that seems unending? Getting us together and strengthening the union together.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Good morning, Nigerians. I must say I'm really worried about the statement credited to Mr. Vice President because of two reasons. Number one, that statement gives a picture of helplessness and, near hopelessness even. In the first instance, this government is elected to unite the country and to bring us out of the woods. They came into power because we felt these were some of the indices that were manifesting itself in the previous government. That's why Nigerians felt that the present government has the capacity and has the will to, change the tide, unite the country, make more progress. But for this kind of statement coming from the Vice President, a sitting Vice President, I think it's unfortunate. It's not expected of that office. And government, those in power are supposed to give us hope.
Well, ironically, in that same statement,
if I can just now telling us that if they are now telling us that the situation is helpless and near hopelessness, so it's a source of worry.
All right. If I can quickly follow up on your response, saying that sounded helpless and hopeless. Interestingly, the context which the Vice President made that statement was, fortunately for us, our walls are not yet broken, but there are obvious cracks that could lead to a break if not properly addressed. So do you still think that was hopeless? I mean, he said, fortunately, and he went on to say that, in fact, there's an urgent need for a Nehemiah in our midst, because he was using the metaphor of Nehemiah in the Bible and the broken wall, which eventually, a solution was provided. So in the context of that, not just speaking out the break and the crack, do you still think that was hopeless?
Yeah, that's why they are in the office. That's why they are elected. They are supposed to ensure that if there are cracked walls, they are supposed to mend it. And let me tell you, my other worries and is the fact that a section of the country is orchestrating certain hatred against the other section of the country. This will not help us. When we want a solution to the problems of this country, we should not lace it with mischief and hatred. Now the damage has been done. Whatever that means, it's going to be difficult to convince some gullible Nigerians that the Vice President means well, considering the fact that before now there are previous statements, in this direction too, from the Southwest, that, the Oduduwas and so on. I have a lot of respected statesmen, a lot of elder statesmen from the Southwest that I respect a lot. But some of the statements coming from some groups in the Southwest laced with hatred and mischief is not going to help us in this country.
Now, let me even get to...
Sometimes is that even if we want a new constitution or if we want to separate, there's a better way, a matured way, a dynamic way of doing it. If we are not careful, we are going to, this is going to create more violence and more orchestrated hatred and mischief amongst Nigerians.
Okay, let me head to the Southwest.
Seriously, I'm not happy with that statement coming from the Vice President.
All right, let me bring in Dr. Adegoke. Pardon me, Mr. Mohammed. Let me get to Dr. Adegoke on this one. Could you weigh in on this one as well? How do we sort this challenge out?
Well, first of all, let me thank you for bringing me in. I represent an umbrella of Yoruba groups, and primarily I represent Voice of Reason. And Voice of Reason is made up of elderly people, very measured, and people who are very reasonable. We have said that we need to restructure this country before the country can move forward. The person who was there earlier on, my friend Tony, gave a very good background of what's been happening. The gentleman in the studio is not likely to be happy because they are enjoying what they should not be enjoying now. It's like somebody who has stolen your goods and you've caught him and you're asking him to return what he has stolen. And he's telling you that he's not happy with what you're saying. Of course, he won't be happy peacefully, or, there will be some problem, either going to court or you fight over it. That is the basic truth.
He said that is part of the methodology of the narrative that could stoke what we do not want. Because the narrative and analogy you use, isn't that a lot different from the situation we have now? Because as it is now, we've got laws, we have systems, we have structures that many think can address some of these concerns that you have raised. Isn't that the case?
Believe me, people are very reasonable. They said, let us sit down and discuss. There was something that was working before the army took over. Even in the Constitution, it is illegal for the government to be taken by force of arms. And after the Civil War, people should have come together to say, okay, what these people did was illegal. Either they are punished for it, which graciously they were not, but then we should have gone back to where we were and said, oh, okay, this was the situation before these people destructed the system. But like Tony said, we've been living a lie since then, patching everything and refusing to do the fundamentals. So, of course, that is the situation where we are.
Let me bring in Elijah Yakubu again on this one. Well, if certain things are not going right, perhaps you don't like how they're going about it, what do you suggest and how should this be approached?
Chamberlain, let me let you in on this. I'm not going to use the kind of language my brother from the Southwest is using. You know, this kind of offensive language are the kind of language that precipitate hatred and mischief. We won't get anywhere if we continue using this kind of language against each other. Don't forget, I listened to Tony too. Don't forget that pre-independence, the North was taking care of the country altogether from its farm produce. There is history to that effect. That's number one. Number two, let me give you an example of the security situation in the country now. The North is worst hit by the insecurity in this country now. If you are talking of blood flow in the Middle Belt and elsewhere in the Southwest and so on, you are not talking of the North. The state of the president, even where the president comes from in Katsina, Every day on average, the least is 5 people are being killed, if not kidnapped, and so on. Go to Zamfara, go to Kaduna, go to Sokoto. I think in analyzing, in finding solutions to this problem, I think we should be fair to each part of this country. Part of the problem that is retarding our progress is injustice and unfairness. We are not being fair and we are not being just to each other. You know, when we go back to our cocoons, our, ethnic enclaves and begin to protect it, either the enclave is right or wrong, it won't help us make progress. How can you look at us in the north and be using this kind of depiction that when a certain group of people stole your property and you want them, you don't use this kind of language. And you said your group is a reasonable group, matured group. How can you use that kind of language? I have a lot of respected elder statesmen across this country, from the southwest, southeast, and so on. I respect them a lot, and I speak with them all the time. Agreed, all is not well with the country now, but that should not. People should not take undue advantage of that. Agreed, the president needs to do more himself. I listened to the president recently during his retreat with his ministers, where he mentioned to the ministers that he wants the ministers to talk to their elite friends on what the government is doing. I think on this issue, the president has to come out very strong and find a way of getting leaders of various groups across this country and speak with them. Even if it means him calling the elites and having a heart-to-heart talk or a round-table talk with them. But please, and please, we should stop using derogatory languages offensive languages against each other. Because
all right, Alhaji Yakubu,
find solution to these problems.
We need to go to break, but we will come back and continue our conversation. So do we have a communication challenge? We'll address that when we return. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's get to Dr. Adegoke. You were going to respond before we went to break. Could you go ahead, please?
Right. Thank you very much. There are so many things he said that, I need to respond to. In the first instance, he erroneously said that the North was carrying the whole country before. He should be reminded that the arrangement then was that there was autonomy. Every region maintained their economy and they just paid a fraction of whatever they derived from within their region to the federal government. The North was making its money from groundnut and from all the other things, their hides and whatever. Whereas the West was making its money from cocoa and palm oil, and the same thing with the Eastern region. Now, the question of using a language that is not palatable, I only use that as a metaphor. Now, the federal government appropriated everything, things that did not belong to federal government. Is that not stealing? Then secondly, they start to divide it the way they want. And the people who have been in control of the federal government since the Civil War, we know where they've come from. A situation where the parliament now, which is the National Assembly, has a preponderance of northerners there, to the extent that the people representing Kano State alone, there are more than the people representing the whole of the Eastern region, the old Eastern region. And every time people have been talking of, let us restructure, they are ever ready to say, go to the National Assembly, when they know that the dice is loaded against everybody else. And we are saying that this is not fair.
Yeah, but Dr. Adegoke, pardon me to jump in and follow up on that response of yours. Actually, what some of the leaders of thought who we've spoken to behind the scenes in the North are that because when the South or some Southerners talk about restructuring, it means different things to different people. But even at that, they still think that, look, all of this agitation, we can't sit in one corner, talk about restructuring, whatever meaning it has for them, and expect that those in other regions will understand what they're saying without them going over to lobby them. Because many have said, even in the National Assembly, if proper lobbying is not done, you can't get things passed. So would it be right to just have that blanket blame on a certain bloc when that bloc thinks certain things have not been done by the agitators?
This is the same thing we are saying. It's the same thing we are saying. It's very easy to say, this and that, and try to wash their hands that is what the law says now. But the law on which the whole country is based is flawed. And we are saying, let us sit down together and correct it. But they've made it almost impossible. This idea of people not knowing what restructuring is just a subterfuge. Everybody knows what it means. Let us go to the status quo ante bellum. That when there was war, we knew that there was war, but the war had ended. Let us go back to where we were when things started going wrong. Then we can chart our way back from there. But because it pays people now the way things are, it pays some people, not only in the north, even in the south. There are some people who are benefiting from this chaos, and they don't want it to change. They continue saying that they don't know what is restructuring. They will talk of devolution tomorrow. They will talk of resource control. Just to muddy the water. They know what should be done.
If I can come in now,
people should come together and decide on how they want to live together and prepare the constitution that will guide them. That
just quickly before we take it back to our Abuja studio, the claim you made about the National Assembly members in Kano being more than those of the Southeast, do you have figures to back that?
Please come again.
I said the claim you made about National Assembly members from Kano being more than those of Southeast states put together. Do you have figures to back that?
Now, look, when this country was just 12 states, look at the number of states that have been created since then. Look at the number that have been created from Kano alone. You had Digawa and the rest. Look at the local government in Lagos State. We had the same number before with Kano. But even when Kano was split, Kano still had, more than Lagos State as it is. And these are the types of parameters they use in sharing money and so on, which is very unfair. And with the number of legislators in the National Assembly, it is impossible it's just like the North has a veto over whatever happens in this country.
Let's take this back. Yes, Dr. Doke, just one moment. Let's take it back to Alhaji Yakubu in Abuja studio. Well, of course, you would also respond to it. But gentlemen, I feel that, from what we have had so far, we seem to be paying a lot more attention to our different regions and sentiments as opposed to Nigeria. Okay, is there any way we can begin to look at that? Just as I think it's something that you also alluded to earlier, Mr. Yakubu. How do we begin that conversation of talking about Nigeria as one, and not Nigeria in the light of the North and the South and the East and the West and all of that? How do we begin that conversation?
Thank you very much. Some of us, in our own little way, apart from the organization I represent, in our own little way, have been making contacts with our friends across the country. I speak almost on daily basis with elder statesmen across the country on how I think, we can move forward. That's number one. Number two, there is no way, even if we want a brand new constitution, we can't throw away the National Assembly. You have to build something on what you have. if I can ask my brother from the Southwest, how does he want us to, how does he want us to have a brand new constitution without talking together, without, without, having cross-fertilization of ideas amongst ourselves? Most of the things he's talking about now, about the North, this and that, is on assumption. What effort have his group made to reach out to other groups, other groups in other parts of the country? I can tell you what ACF is doing, and some of us as individuals doing to reach out to other parts of the country. That's how you get the country united. That's how we can get problems solved together. There's no doubt that the country is at its lowest ebb now on all fronts. This I totally agree. But what needs to be done now is to walk the talk. Not assumptions, not castigation, not,
You just agreed with something.
Blaming a particular tribe or region.
Just one moment. You just agreed now. You said it just before we went on break that there are some issues that need to be addressed among us as a nation. That perhaps is what was also alluded to in that comment, that is attributed to the vice president, that is what the kind of crack that he is talking about. So if we are going to begin to address those cracks, which you also say are the challenges that we are having, how do we begin that conversation without looking at the sentiments? Because perhaps those sentiments that you just talked about now are some of those cracks. How do we begin to address them?
That's why in my opening remarks I told you that is why the current government was voted into power. Because Nigerians feel they have the capacity and the will to sort us out. And I also told you now that in the retreat organized by the president with his ministers, I heard him saying that the ministers should go and talk to their elite friends, that this is what the government is doing. That's why I also said that I think the president himself had to lead frontally. If he thinks, if the government believes that there are issues now, from the statement made by the vice president, then they should start to walk the talk. They should lead. Then we'll follow. The president should call leaders of ethnic groups and call the elites. He's part of the elite now. Okay. Even before he became president, he's an elite.
Okay.
He knows them better than some of us.
Yes, let me take this back to...
and heart-to-heart talk.
Absolutely. Dr. Adegoke, what's your take on how we move from our different regional sentiments to one Nigeria, the theme of this year's celebration as dictated by the leadership of the country is together? But if we continue to talk about the pockets of our interests in the various regions, then we all are defeating the purpose of that vision. So what do we need to begin, what do we need to do to begin to bind us together as one so that we can indeed be together as we are?
Now, there has to be, the atmosphere has to be right. Even the president himself laid the foundation for all these problems. When he was, my friend there said that he was voted into power. That is okay. The moment you are voted into power by even any section of the country as the president, you become the president of the whole country. He is on record to have said that he cannot treat the people who gave him 5% with the same people, the same way that he's going to treat people with 95 who voted him 95%. And you expect people to be happy with that sort of mindset. And he has followed it through with the way he has appointed people into the government. And even only a day or two ago, we were reading in the papers that the DSS recruited about 500 and something people from the north, and only about 80-something people from the south. How do you want to belong to such a country? There has to be justice before people can have a sense of belonging. People cannot have a sense of belonging when they have complaints all over the place. Look at the security situation in the country. It's really very bad. I was looking at a video recently, the whole governor of a state crouching like don't let me use the word in my mouth, on the asphalt, because his convoy, which had a lot of policemen there, was attacked, and many of them were killed. And we have a government who is telling us that they have dealt with Boko Haram. How do you want to belong to a situation like that? That's not who we are.
Okay.
But the whole country has been mismanaged. Everybody knows that. And they are talking of the problem in the north. When
Well,
people were
Okay, Dr.
talking
Luke,
about education, please let me finish.
Okay, go ahead.
There was a time when people had money for education. The North did not spend this money properly, and that's why they have a lot of people who are ready to join Boko Haram. In spite of that, they've been bridging the gap between the South and the North for so long. They have discrepancies in the admission numbers of students. Still, so many years down the line, nothing has changed. There is no improvement. And you can't put that blame on us. If you cannot take care of your house, let us take care of our own house and keep us in peace. That is what we are saying.
But Dr. Duke, there are some sweeping statements that you made which are not exactly the case, because we've spoken to some people up north who the reasons that they are Jews, because some of their world joining it, they are completely different reasons. So we can't exactly say that the North did not spend their money properly and that's why this is happening. But clearly that is not, that cannot be factual as well, because of the people who have brought on this program who have given us their perspectives.
On education, most of those children will be in school, not on the bush and on the road.
But it's a national problem. It's a national problem, which is why we're talking about what solutions, how do we approach some of these things to sort them out?
You cannot expect somebody from the South to go and solve the problem of the North. They have people there, they have politicians there.
But it is one country.
For this type of thing.
It is one country. Isn't it this kind of narrative that even...
Country, that is the aggregate of everybody. That is why it is one country. But for goodness sake, it is one country. Look at the devastation going on in the South, where the oil is being siphoned off.
So I might have missed the point earlier. What is your suggestion as to how do you come about a new constitution with the National Assembly in place?
Now, you see, the low-hanging fruit there is this 2014 confab report, which every section of this country participated in, and they came up with something which the government should have implemented. Government is a continuum. When a government is not supposed to be there forever. When a government gets something to a stage, another government coming in will take it up from there. But a lot of money was spent on this confab, and somebody just came and threw it inside the drawer and locked it up. That is the basis that is the place where we should start. That is the easiest way to go now.
Okay, Dr. Duke, just for a moment. Let's go to Abuja to our guest again, Alhaji Yakubu. A lot of times when we talk about Nigeria, we do not talk about Nigerians. We do not talk about the different subnationals, the states, the state governments, the local governments, and the wards and all of that. And perhaps that is also part of the reason why people are not able to take ownership of the oneness of Nigeria, because we always talk about Nigeria with little attention to those subnationals. And that is perhaps another reason why a number of people are complaining about that exclusive list, which has 68 items as opposed to the other one that has less than 20. In conversation with the states to keep Nigeria together, strengthening our democracy, strengthening our nationhood, what do we need to do, especially from the level of the states?
Let me quickly give you one example of the disadvantage of regionalizing most of our issues or most problems in Nigeria. If you remember during the June 12th, the North has always stood for justice and fairness across this country. No matter what some people might perceive or perception of some people. If you remember June 12th, Because of June 12, Colonel Engiwa Umar sacrificed his commission as a military officer. People like Balarabu Musa spoke up then. People like Shehu Usani spoke up then, Senator Shehu Usani, and there were other younger people down the ladder like us that stood up for that cause then. But that cause started having some problem when the Southwest started regionalizing the issues. So what I'm trying to say here in a nutshell is that, look, if we want to solve Nigerian problems, we have to look for Nigerian solution to Nigerian problems. We can't throw away our National Assembly, whatever it is. We have to come together and talk to them, bring our issues out. Like I earlier said, my brother from the Southwest, has he been able to reach out to other parts of the country? We should not lace this crisis or some of these challenges with hatred and mischief. If we are very objective, we can get these problems solved. And this present administration needs to sit up. I'm not saying that they are doing fantastically well. They need to sit up, walk the talk, and lead from the front. If they lead from the front, a lot of this crisis will die down.
Okay, but when he was talking about the representation in the National Assembly, I think the point he was trying to make is that he thinks that, look, there's a lot more representation for the Northern Bloc than the Southern Bloc. So how do you address those kinds of impressions? Because some will build on that, saying that might have been part of the reasons why the amendments to the Constitution, which was requiring state police and some of other matters, fell through because of such considerations.
If we don't make effort, how can we address it? If you don't go to the National Assembly through your representative that these are the issues we want to address, how do you address it? We can't just be on the air, on the radio, on the newspaper, and just be talking. We have spoken more than enough in this country. We have lamented more than enough in this country. We need to walk the talk now. Let him come through his representative to the National Assembly. Let's trash out these issues. We can't build a new constitution on nothing.
Gentlemen, let me read this.
Amended, if we want a new constitution, we have to go through our representatives.
Okay, concerning the statements
how do we do it? We can't get it from the blues.
Pardon me. Concerning the statements that many have been responding to, attributed to the Vice President, let me read this memo, this press statement, which is coming through from the office of the SGF. So if we can just put it up for all to see. So that memo reads, guys, let's see if we can take a look at that now. The SGF's office put up this saying, I have observed with concern the apparent sensationalization of the remarks I made at the 60th Independence Anniversary Church Service, where I stood in for His Excellency, the Vice President. For the avoidance of doubt, I want to affirm that His Excellency, the Vice President, and I remain very firmly and irrevocably committed to the ideal of one indivisible Nigerian nation. We are also deeply appreciative of President Muhammadu Buhari's consistent efforts to strengthen the unity of the Nigerian nation. Any suggestion to the contrary is a clear misrepresentation of our common position as a government. Signed, Secretary, Boss Mustafa, Secretary to the Government of the Federation. Doesn't this then suggest that we might have been building impressions on a faulty premise?
But knowing Nigeria, for what some of us are, the statement credited to the Vice President was made on Sunday, and today is Wednesday. Immediately after the statement, having noticed the kind of opera that followed it, this refutal should have come immediately. The damage has already been done now. A lot of people will think it's an afterthought. I'm just seeing it now. I've not seen it before. I'm just seeing it now. And today is Wednesday.
Right.
And the statement was made on Sunday. Yeah?
Clearly, the statement, the original statement, was meant to be a metaphor. an example that was given. And really, I read the context for you, the fact that there was fortunately in that saying that this is not hopeless. We can sort this out the same way it was sorted in the story that he put before that particular statement. But quickly, gentlemen, I want to take you up on something, because I realized that during the course of this interview, both of you have said, my brother in the Southwest, my brother from the North. And I'm just thinking, first with you, Alhaji, as a brother, if the Southwest were really your brother, how would you really go about this? Isn't there meant to be some brotherliness in the way we approach this?
Of course, that's the solution to our challenges. If we are sincere in that brotherhood, we'll get out of the woods. It's sincerity of purpose that matters. I'll give you one quick example. Late Arishekola, I was passing through Ibadan when he was alive. I just visited him just to say hello. Could you believe he insisted I had to stay for 2 days? That is called brotherhood. I have a lot of friends across the country, in the Southwest, Southeast, and virtually everywhere. So if we are sincere in this brotherhood, objectively, no insincerity, and no hatred, no mischief, there's no problem that we cannot surmount in this country.
Okay, let's take this to Dr. Adegoke now and get his thoughts.
Republic,
Let's take this to Dr. Adegoke and get him to respond also in that context of brotherliness, because I think that's something we can build on. So, Dr. Adegoke, in the light of the terms both of you have used, brotherliness, how do we approach this?
There's nothing wrong with brotherliness. There's nothing wrong with brotherliness. But then we cannot have a situation of a donkey and a rider, and we call that brotherliness. There are a lot of Westerners who have friends across the Niger. And even a lot of Igbos. I mean, there are people who have individual friends, personal friends across the whole divide. But that is not the question we are talking now. We are saying that the structure is not good, it's not fair, there is injustice. Let us correct it. And the only way we can do it is to come together. I agree that we have to come together, but trying to put it on the National Assembly to solve the problem, we are just deceiving ourselves. We are not going to go anywhere. Let them go and revisit the 2014 confab. There are some low-hanging fruits there that can be implemented that will douse the tension in the country. But if you just want to reinvent the wheel and try to waste people's time until the next election, the tension will continue the way it is going, and it's not going to all go well. We have to be reasonable.
Yes.
Let us come back from the brink and do what is right. That is what I believe.
All right, Mr. Yakubu, do you also agree that we should take a look at the 2014 confab report?
I agree to that, but what if he is writing off the National Assembly and he said there are hanging fruits? Where do you take them to reap those hanging fruits? Huh? You don't write off the National Assembly and you say there are hanging fruits. Who will deal with those hanging fruits? It's the National Assembly. So what I think we should do is all the various groups should put pressure on their representatives that let's sit down and this is what we feel should be done. Like I asked him in the course of this conversation, that how has he been able to reach out to other groups across the country? This is the only way we can get, we can find a solution to the problems. They are surmountable problems. They are not challenges that are insurmountable. It's just the will and the sincerity of purpose and leadership from the government. If we don't get the leadership government, then we do it ourselves. I agree with that.
All right, Alhaji Muhammad
Yakubu. I complained of something and he used that same derogatory word again, the donkey and the rider.
No,
you don't use this kind of word against a set of people.
Okay, even though he was
If you look at my conversation since we
get your
started,
point.
I've been very cultured in my language.
And we appreciate that. But we have to thank you both for coming on this morning. Alhaji Muhammad Yakubu, member, National Working Committee of the ACF and a political analyst, as well as Dr. Olufemi Adegoke, Chairman, Steering Committee of Yoruba Summit Group, and also Chairman, Voice of Reason. Thank you, sir, gentlemen, for talking to us this morning. So we need to Georgia and not war above all else. Nigeria at 60, the theme together. So we'll, don't forget, we did put out a poll. We'd like you to go ahead and vote in that poll. It's on our Twitter handle. We did ask you just one question, and so there are a number of options there. So if you could just go ahead. But we'll be back in just a moment. Join us again.